Hello, everyone. It's a little bit afternoon, so we're going to get started here. My name is Lily Griffin. I'm with BindTuning, and I want to welcome all of you. Thank you for those of you who logged in a little early for your patience. And so we're very excited to have all of you who are in education with us today. Our CEO, Beatriz Oliveira, is standing by. She's going to get started to speak to you about how you can leverage online learning with Microsoft Teams with a modular curriculum. As always, you can use the chat in the meeting to ask any questions. We will have a question and answer session at the end, so we'll give you an opportunity. We'll turn on microphones, but we'll get started. So I'm going to pass it on to Beatrice right now.
Hi, thank you, Lily.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. First of all, thank you for joining us today for the next 30 minutes for this webinar about building modular curriculum in Microsoft Teams. So this is a session focused on digital learning, specifically on the Microsoft Teams platform. Okay, and let's get started. So what's in store for today? We will discuss the most relevant issues and challenges that schools and universities are facing in the automated creation of digital assets in Microsoft Teams, namely and specifically on how to provide standardized course content to students and how to package and deliver that content to digital classrooms in Teams. For this, we will dive into a BindTuning solution called Automate365, and we will explore how to address these issues. So we will have time for questions at the end of the session, so we hope you enjoy and stay with us. So before we get started, just a quick overview on where we are today. I think that we all know the pandemic accelerated the adoption of digital tools in the classroom. So during the pandemic, from Zoom to Google Classroom to Microsoft Teams, schools have used remote learning tools to face pandemic challenges. But in the past months, as the pandemic started to slow down, schooling kind of changed again from a full online model to hybrid and also to face-to-face scenarios, being that one thing actually remained consistent, the use of technology. And even in-person classes right now are transformed into sort of blended scenarios where technology is used to complement traditional learning with digital tools to support teaching. Also, for example, with digital assignments being provided to students. But since there are other challenges that schools have to face, like, for example, the fact that classrooms change every semester, curriculum is permanently evolving, all this poses several challenges to schools and universities worldwide. I can tell you that working with education institutions for the past years, we at BindTuning have learned and realized that there are numerous challenges that are common to most of these customers. Oh, sorry. And this is a list of some of those issues. Starting with the first two, what is related to scale and to users. Typically, we talk about these challenges when we think about the automated creation of hundreds or thousands of teams in Teams for each classroom and associating students and teachers to those teams. And these two challenges are right now addressed by the use of School Data Sync, which then synchronizes this information to the Azure AD. But this is typically not enough when we think about providing modular curriculum to students. The goal would be providing content when creating those teams, default content that is already preset, pre-created when those teams are deployed. And we can be talking about things like having OneNotes that are already pre-populated with useful content for teachers, or for example, having lists of assignments that are already also prepared and available for teachers to provide to their students throughout the school year. And also the ability to have files aggregated and structured by content units within teams that can be made available by teachers to their students. And the creation of content and this ability to provide content within teams is not only useful to make teachers' lives easier, but it is very important towards another challenge, which is standardization. And why is this important? We also realize that although there are teachers that are extremely digitally savvy and are able to create amazing content within teams and very engaging content to their students, there are also teachers that don't have that type of skill set or don't have the time or the ability to be able to create that type of content. So the ability to provision teams with content is also important to be able to standardize the level of teaching that can be provided to students throughout not only the school, but eventually throughout a school district or even a county, or when we're talking about university, throughout the entire the entire universe of students. Also, as the school year goes by, it is important to be able to provide updates. We know that curriculum is not something that is absolutely static, so it evolves a long time, and it's crucial that we have tools and the mechanisms to provide these updates and fresh content to all the teams. So we believe at BindTuning that deployment automation is the key to address these challenges. And let me quickly dive into our solution, Automate365. So Automate365 is an automation solution for deployments. It has an underlying deployment engine and also a user interface. And the use of Automate365 is actually sort of divided into 3 different moments in time. On a first moment, we have the ability to create templates. And when we think about these teams, and if we are talking about how to replicate the same content, how to provision teams with content in them, how to be able to provide the same structure to different teachers, to different classrooms, and eventually throughout different years, this can be achieved by creating templates for Microsoft Teams. And this is possible within Automate365. We will see it in a minute how to do it. Not only Automate365 has the ability to create these templates, but also associated with each template, the ability to provide additional types of information. For example, being able to define if during that deployment process there have to be approval workflows that should take place before the actual teams are created, if we have to have some sort of mapping so that the final teams that are created are not just exact clones of the template, but we can have some sort of variability within the teams that relates to the different groups, to the different classrooms. For example, a simple thing like changing the name of a channel based on the name of the classroom or the code for the classroom. This type of mapping and changing information is also very powerful when it comes to creating Microsoft Teams based on templates. But also things, for example, like triggering rules. How is the process triggered? How does it start? And when we talk about triggering, the creation of those teams at scale in volume based on the templates can be done not only upon the request of an IT admin, but also eventually be based on information that is updated. And what does this mean? If the goal is to create teams that are based on the groups that have been synced to the Azure AD, it is possible with Automate365 upon the creation of new groups within the Azure AD that this update on its own, this creation on its own, starts the deployment process, and teams are created based on this trigger. Or, for example, throughout the school year, if we have some way of maintaining curriculum information within SharePoint, an update to that information that lies in SharePoint could also be the trigger to start a deployment. And on a third moment, we have the actual creation of the teams in bulk at scale. Also with the ability at the end of the process to invoke callbacks or to invoke additional workflows that have to take place to inform, for example, internally within the institution that this deployment is finished. Let me also share with you that this tool, Automate365, is not only extremely powerful for the creation of teams and content in teams, but let me share with you that it is also extremely powerful for the creation of other workspaces that lie on top of Microsoft 365. We can be talking about automating the creation, for example, of SharePoint sites, of Power BI dashboards, or, for example, of Microsoft project sites. And this actually allows the bulk creation or the automated creation of other types of environment. Also, Automate365 not only allows the triggering of the deployment to be based on information that changes and is updated within the Azure AD or in SharePoint, but also from other types of data sources like CSV files or Excel files, or, for example, CRM systems. So let me show you how the entire flow works. As I mentioned, we have 3 moments in time. Each swim lane actually represents one of those moments. So on a first step, we have the creation of the actual teams that will be used for the templates. So let's imagine that we need to create a template for mathematics, 10th grade. The first step is actually going to teams and creating one of those teams. It doesn't have to be created from scratch. If within your institution you already have content within teams that has been useful in the previous school year, you can use one of those teams and package one of those teams as a template, and all that information, all that structure, the channels, the content, the files, the applications within that team will be saved as a template. And that is the first action that occurs in this process. Then on a second moment in time, we have the creation of the groups in the Azure AD. Typically, that is done by a synchronization from school data sync, and upon that creation, IT admins can actually request to our provisioning engine, to Automate365, the automated deployment of all the necessary teams at scale based on the groups that have been added to the Azure AD. So if we are talking again about mathematics, 10th grade, if we have a set of groups that have been created to the Azure AD with all the math classes for the 10th grade, for example, for a group of schools within a county or within a school district, all those teams can be deployed with the content based on the template that was created previously at the same time by using Automate365. And as I mentioned, This creation can be automatically triggered, if that is the case, in the moment that the groups are created directly in the Azure AD. Obviously, considering that any workflows that have to take place will also occur before the provisioning engine starts creating the actual teams. And with this, let me jump into a demo. Let me also say that if you have any questions in the meantime, just put them on the chat. We will address them all as soon as we get to Q&A. All right, so we will, during this demo, address those 3 steps, okay? So first, the creation of the templates. Second, the moment where information is synchronized in the Azure AD from School Data Sync, and we will see the groups in the Azure AD. And then on a third moment, we will see the deployment of the teams based on those groups created from the Azure AD. So let's start with step 1. And as mentioned, the initial step is really the creation of a team, or the use of a team. Let me tell you that as soon as you have one of those teams, it's very simple to go to Automate365 and use this option here to create a new template. Basically, as soon as a new template is requested, what happens is that the IT admin can log in to their account within the education tenant, select Microsoft Teams as a platform, and Automate365 will be able to retrieve all the teams that are available, allowing the search for the specific team that we want to convert to template. It will show all the information and all the structure that lies within that team. So we are talking about all the channels, all the tabs, all the content, and we can include all the content or not. We can select what is to be included. At the same time, there is the possibility, because every team in Microsoft Teams has an aggregated Office 365 site. So we can also say and define if we want that content to be deployed at the same time or not when the template is actually provisioned. We can name the template. We can define some tags for easy search, define a description, and save it to the gallery. And basically, at this moment, what happens is that team is currently being converted into a template within the institution's gallery in Automate365. It takes a few minutes to convert into a final template, and from this moment on, the template is ready to be used. So let's now jump into the Azure AD. At a second moment in time, as we discussed, groups are created within the Azure AD, for example, in this case, for multiple mathematics 10th grade classes. And all those groups have associated students and teachers. And let's say that we want to create teams in Microsoft Teams based on those Azure AD groups. We have to go back to Automate365, select the template that was previously recorded, and say that we want to install this template. Log in again to the tenant, and say that we want to create those teams based on the Office 365 groups. And what this will do is retrieve from the tenant the list of groups that are available. And at this point, we can search for a specific code. In this case, since we want to make the deployment for all the mathematics 10th grade classrooms, we just searched for Math 10, and it retrieves all the groups within the Azure AD that match that search. We can select all the groups at one time, and from here, proceed to start the installation. Note that this will create multiple different teams in Teams. So we have the ability in this moment to define what is the pattern based on which those teams will be created. So what is the pattern for the team name? What is the pattern for the team description? And for this, we make available a series of variables, and those variables are fields that come from the Azure AD. So we can map the team name to the group name. We can map the team description to another type of information. And as soon as we are ready, we can just proceed to review. So within Automate365, users have the ability to review this information before starting the actual deployment of all the teams. So you can see that we are ready to deploy all these teams in Teams that have been mapped to the right Math 10 classes that were identified from the groups within the Azure AD. And as soon as everything has been checked and is correct, we can proceed and start the installation. So starting from this moment, the ID admins are able to actually control the progress of the installations and see for every single team at what stage installation is at, so that as soon as all the teams have been deployed, they will have that information. You can see that immediately the teams start to be created within Microsoft Teams. At this point, only the general channel was added, but if we were to wait some more minutes, we would see that all the channels would be added and all the tabs would be added to all the teams that have been created at this point. Okay, so with this, schools can actually achieve several different goals. First and foremost, the automated, and this is obvious, the automated creation of teams with standardized course content, and this is absolutely important and crucial for schools and university. Maintain that those course repositories for use, and we're talking about creating sample teams in Teams with that information. Those teams can be kept and used year after year. They can be updated, and templates can be saved back again with those updates. I can tell you, and I will show you just a minute in the roadmap, that we are currently implementing support for SCORM files, so that we can also import that type of content that you most likely already have available and make them available within these templates as well. So this allows schools to actually consolidate all the best practices, all the knowledge, and all the current curriculum, and use that within these reusable templates, actually making it very easy to deploy new teams with content, but also to deploy updates. The demo that we just saw, we saw the ability to install a template from scratch, but actually there is also an option there to install an update, which allows, for example, in the middle of the school year, if there is the need to add an additional unit or an additional course easily, that can be added and installed to multiple teams at a time, making that content available to all the classrooms that should receive that new information. Obviously, there is also another very, very important benefit, which is the reducing the probability for error, since we are mostly removing the human factor from this equation, but also reducing costs by adding automated provisioning while also increasing innovation. We are extremely excited about Automate365, the power it can bring to schools and universities, how it can actually solve issues and challenges that we just went through, and we have had so far tremendous positive feedback from our customers. Let me tell you that for 2022, we already have in our roadmap some very interesting features, namely group synchronization, and I'll just talk about that in detail in a second. Governance features, and as I mentioned a minute ago, the support for core standards, namely for SCORM. In the case of group synchronization, we identified a need within institutions, education and institutions, which is the need that some organizations have to actually convert AD security groups into teams. This currently is not possible with any Microsoft tool. So we are creating a tool that's called Automate365 Group Sync that will allow that member synchronization from AD security groups with Microsoft 365 groups, allowing for the creation of teams for those groups. And this will be a freemium tool. We are also, and we also identified the need to manage the life cycle of these workspaces, of these teams. So we will be launching tools that allow identifying inactive workspaces or enforcing workspace management policies. So all the life cycle management, from deleting to archiving, will be available also during 2022. I do hope that you found this information relevant for your institution. If that was the case, we are absolutely available to meet with you and address your concerns, understand a bit more about your current reality. So please just scan this QR code or take a screenshot of it, and this will take you directly to our calendar to schedule a call and schedule a meeting with us. We hope you enjoyed the webinar, and we hope to see you again soon in one of our sessions. Thank you.